Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and online role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another Roll20 review, my written and video review series where I take a look at the marketplace section of online role-playing website Roll20.net. With this video, we'll be looking at Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, the recently released bestiary from Wizards of the Coast, and adapted into Roll20 through their compendium, as well as we'll also be looking at the Adventurers League module one-shot. It was a sample introductory adventure designed to show off the new monsters from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, and it is called Rrakkma. And we'll be taking a look at that as well as we scooch over to... There we go. Alright, that is a very busy screen. Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, Rrakkma. I'm going to focus this review. I'm obviously going to talk about the Tome of Foes, but in terms of how Roll20 uses it, it's, I think, more effective to actually use this adventure, which is free to all Roll20 Pro subscribers, and it's kind of used as like a sample appetizer for Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes because it uses about a dozen of the new creatures, as well as giving you a new dungeon and pre-generated characters from Mordenkainen. That is a mouthful. God damn it, that wizard. Seriously, MTOF. My boy Mordenkainen. You gotta, how about Mo K or something? You gotta shorten that shit up. We're looking at that in terms of an actual review for the purpose of this video, but I will go over the Tome of Foes itself because that's worth going over. So, as I mentioned, I believe this is the third official bestiary released for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. The first one obviously was the Monster Manual in 2014, was one of the first releases for 5th edition, and then they released Volo's Guide to Monsters, I think was 2016. So we're on a pretty every 2-year schedule now with having just more beasts. And frankly, the Monster Manual is really good. It's got pretty much everything you need. And then Volo's had everything else. So what Mordenkainen does is really add a theme of higher level, like demon cults and the actual abyssal lords, kind of the alien creatures of the far realms, just really exotic creatures, and like Feywild, and that's all. It's nice to have. It also makes Mordenkainen's easy to both recommend and dissuade depending on what you're looking for. If you're primarily just running through kind of traditional fantasy orcs and goblins, low-level adventures, I don't think this is going to do you any good, honestly. But if you are looking for more tier 2, tier 3, and above, and really going into some crazy play, you're going to hell, you're going to the far realm, you're dealing with the Gith, mind flayers, all of that stuff. There's good stuff here for sure. Although you do get some repeats if you've been purchasing and keeping up with all of their campaign books, like Out of the Abyss or Prince of the Apocalypse, and all those that they added their own custom creatures and stat blocks along the way. You're going to see a lot of repeats here, and that's kind of what these books tend to do. I believe Volo's added some from like the Tyranny of Dragons and whatnot. So that it's kind of a way for people that maybe don't want to, want to run their own campaigns. They don't want to use these campaign books, but they still like having those kind of monster resources, so that can be useful. But you'll see kind of a lot of repeats if you've been keeping up with all of that. So what do you get with Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, which is $49.95 on the Roll20 marketplace? You get over 230 new monsters, all of whom have character sheets, handouts, and tokens integrated into Roll20's compendium, and I will show that in a moment. You get 20 lore entries, which expand on Faerun's races, as well as, I mentioned, the Abyssal Lords, the Feywild, the Gith. It's a lot of exotic extra stuff that I think is cool, but again, it's just know what you're going to get. You also get 15 new player sub-races, including expanding tieflings to where they can specifically be from certain abyssal lords. It also adds the Eladrin, which I guess are like seasonal elves, the Gith, and like Dwergar and a couple others. We'll go through those too. But there's a lot of good amount. None of them are super exotic like Eric Coker or anything, but there's some good stuff here for sure. I like having those other player race options. And then Rrakkma is separate. So again, you do not have to purchase Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes to have access to Rrakkma. You do have to be a Roll20 Pro subscriber. But I would imagine if you're watching these videos, you're keeping up with my reviews, you're probably already a Pro subscriber. And the nice thing is only the DM needs to be the Pro subscriber, which is a big plus. But the Rrakkma includes one 5-foot grid map, 11 NPCs, 10 of which are from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, and 6 new pre-generated characters, all of which, and you can see on the bottom right there, below the Roc Ma word, all of them are the new Gith Zerai and Gith Yankee sub-races. They're all level 9 also, which I'll go over that, but that is, for a one-shot Adventures League adventure, jumping in with level 9 is pretty nuts, but that also is a good example of what you're going to get with the Tome of Foes. You're going to get some higher level stuff, so that's also interesting. Alright, so Tome of Foes, once you purchase it, in case you haven't done that with the supplemental, if you purchase the campaign modules on Roll20, it just adds that campaign, as a game, you go in and all your shit's there. If you purchase something like the Monster, and I believe Monster Manual, Cobalt Press's Tomb of Beasts is on here, which is really good, and now Tome of Foes, it integrates it into your compendium, which means it's automatically added to all of your campaigns, which is really cool. I like the way they do that. The whole compendium system works well. So I'll show that. You literally, and I'm in, obviously, the Rrakkma adventure right now, but I could do this in any of my adventures. You literally go to the compendium section. We'll go to monsters. Searching. There we go. All right, so and what it's going to include here is the base ones, which technically are part of the SRD, the standard rules document that the open everybody can use, and then all the MTOF monsters, and we can filter to where we just see. Okay, there it shows all the releases. So yeah, you got Monster Manual, Valos, Tomb of Beasts, which is not D&D. That's Cobalt Press, but it's really good. I would recommend Tomb of Beasts for sure. Apply filter. Okay, so here's all our monsters from Mordenkainen, and we can just zip on through, and you can see everybody has their token. Let's see, what's a cool one? Bandit captains are not that cool. Bale, you're a cool guy, Bale. An Archdevil. So you can see you get a lot of information on here. You've got pictures, which is always nice. We like pictures. Mordenkainen obviously has his, and that's something that Wizards has done really well. They just did the Xanathar's Guide to Everything, which was more player focused. This one's obviously more for DMs. But I like that they actually embody these characters from the lore and let them have commentary on, and Valos, obviously Valo did the same thing, and let them have the commentary. It gives that nice little personality. It makes it a fun read, which is nice to have. So you get that for every entry. A shit ton of information. I mean, just paragraphs and paragraphs. Obviously, Bale is a archdevil, so you get a lot of information about the Blood War, what's going on in the Nine Hells, and then you actually get his stat block and things down here. Legendary actions, good shit. His Hellish Morningstar, and yeah, there's CR19 Bale, who's a large fiend. Pretty big stat block. So, and if you want to use these guys. This is kind of, let's go to the random battle map that we can. There we go. Alright, so if you want to use Bale, you can drag his ass over here. Bale, where are you, buddy? There we go. Alright, a little bit of lag there. So I literally just dragged it from the journal onto this screen, and he's there. He's a token, and he is ready to go. He's got his life and his armor class. And then I can shift double click and bring up his character sheet like that. So the reason you want to purchase these things is if you want to be able to use these, have access to all of these creatures just at the touch of just a few clicks. It still seems a little pricey. Like, I get why it's as expensive as the campaigns in terms of that's how Wizards releases these books. They're about the same price. But for Roll20 purposes, you're not getting any maps, which is the big plus of having these adaptations. So if you're gonna use most of these creatures, if you've got like a demon cult themed campaign, or like a Feywild campaign, that you're gonna use a good chunk of these creatures, then yes, I can see it being very useful to be able to have all of these at the touch of a button. And plus, these are very advanced creatures. This would take a while to fill out and get all this together. But on the other hand, if you're just going to use a couple creatures, it's not that hard to go in and Roll20 and just make your own character sheet. And that's one reason I love Roll20, is because it has that open-ended ability to make whatever you need, including pictures and character sheets and all that. So that's kind of limited. But I like that there's a theme here. It's all these are not the creatures you'll find loitering in your average dungeon. These are, there's a Hellfire engine, there's giant abyssal lords, there's cosmic horrors, psionic warriors from a different plane of existence. Like, these are very specialized, exotic things to find, and I like that's a theme there. And again, it makes it easy to either recommend if you're going to use those kind of creatures, or say, like, look, you're probably not even going to use these guys. So some of them are expanded on. So, for example, the Gith, we're already in the original monster manual, the Githyanki and Githzerai, and they had a nice little 2-page spread, I believe, and like 4 stat blocks, which is good. But Mordenkainen's adds even more, I believe. Let's see, I wrote this down. Adds another 5 Gith variants, so we can scroll down. Where my Gith at? Gith. Oops, there we go. Githyanki Gish, Githyanki Kithrak, Githyanki Supreme Commander, Githzerai Anarch, Githzerai Enlightened. That's a lot of Gith right there, including, I believe, the Supreme Commander is a CR14 boss with the legendary actions. So, okay, like, we had a lot of Gith. This gives you even more Gith. Like, that's fine. So you're gonna use like a Planescape type campaign. Really, really good shit here. Planescape stuff would benefit very well. Any of those kind of extra dimensional or planar adventures would be fun. In fact, that'll be a nice segue into doing Roc Ma, because that takes place in Pandemonium, in the plane of madness, which is cool. But so overall, just before we go to Roc Ma, Tome of Foes, it's nice. I'm not going to go through all these creatures. There's certainly a lot of really cool shit here. A lot of cultists. Let's scroll back up where the cultists are. Yeah, look at this. There's a whole scroll bar of cultists of every single demon. There's Orcus, there's Zugtmai, there's Yinig. I'm not going to try to pronounce all these names. Jubilex. You'll recognize a lot of these names, especially if you played Out of the Abyss. That was the whole Rage of Demons plot line where it had demons invading the Underdark. If you're doing that campaign, this one seems even more useful, because you've got stat blocks for all those creatures. Although that campaign also gave you a bunch of stat blocks you needed, so we'll see some of those repeats. But yeah, there's a lot of demon cultists, a lot of some neat Feywild stuff, some planar stuff. It's good stuff, but I imagine most DMs aren't probably gonna use this stuff. Like, it's cool if you are, but I just picture most campaigns being more traditional orcs, goblins, lower level, typical fantasy stuff. And that's where obviously Monster Manual and Volos comes in real handy too. Volos had a lot of those like variants on the orcs and goblins and kobolds and all those guys. And this one just seems more high level, more specialized, more centered around those kind of themes of extra exotic alien stuff, which is cool if that's what you're looking for. All right, before we move on, let's actually go to let's look at the lore and the sub races too. So lore, and it's not exactly exciting to talk about lore in a video because it's just pages and pages of stuff. But, for example, if you want to know more information about the Raven Queen, I also get some good pictures here, which is fun. And the Shadar Kai. Paragraphs and paragraphs of detailed information about the Feywild and the Raven Queen, the Dark Seldarine. There's got all these Abyssal Lord information is here, if you're really, which reminds me of, was that Neverwinter Nights 2 that did that with, or no, it was Hordes of the Underdark that did the cool, Neverwinter Nights 1, that did the cool, like, you're actually going into one of the ninth circles of hell. It was really neat. And it's more like it's like, you know, Dante's Inferno, Alice in Wonderland kind of craziness. But look at all this. There's just a ton of information. Every single cultist, how every demon lord actually acts in their you know, zone. Like you're probably going to be tier 3 at least if you're going to be dealing with this stuff, which is cool that it's there. Each race gets a nice little mention here. Elves, a race divided about the drow. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of lore. Jesus, there's a lot of lore here. Look at this. Woo! Good pictures, too. Alright, so that's enough. Again, I'm not going to sit here and talk about the lore too much. There's a lot of good lore here, for sure. But I would say, again, the lore is tied into the monster. So it's a lot of stuff about the Feywild. It's the Abyssal Lords. It's the Gith and the Endless War. Just, you know, there's some expansions on all the races, but it seems like that is still some very high-level exotic stuff we're dealing with. And then finally, let's look at the new player races, which you've got the Dwergar, the Deep Gnomes, so kind of Underdark themed stuff. There's your Eladrin, Githyanki, and Githzerai, and you can see it's pretty easy to see just all the stuff that you get. Just a very easy mention. Trained from birth as warriors. Tieflings get new abilities to tie into what I guess person you're from. So Mephistopheles gives you the Mage Hand cantrip and maybe slightly changes your ability scores, which is nice. So, you know, it's alright, that's fine. But that's like half of your new sub-races are just different Tiefling varieties. Alright, let's go to Rrakkma. Rrakkma! So, I guess we'll go back to this page for a second. So again, this is it's called an introductory adventure. I've never heard of an introductory adventure using level 9 PCs. That's kind of bananas. But this is a free adventure to all Roll20 Pro subscribers, designed specifically, and it is an Adventures League Adventures League legal, designed to show off specifically Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, which, again, because Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes is a lot of high-level monsters, you're going to have some high-level PCs. So the cool thing is you do get to jump in with a group of Githzerai and Githyanki. Now, if you know your Gith lore, I do not. I had to read about it, but it's been a while since I played Planescape Torment. I should play that game again. I need to play the new one, too, the Torment Numenera one. Anyway, you wonder why are they working together? Don't they hate each other? They do. But there is a group of radical, I guess, liberal Githzerai, Githyanki that join forces together in order to defeat their even more hated common foe, which are the Mind Flayers. And Roc Ma is the name of the hunting party that forms that hunts down Mind Flayers, and you get to choose from one of 6 pre-generated level 9 Gith PCs, which is pretty cool. They all have their own little pictures, which I think are lifted from various art from either Mordenkainen's or other Gith art, possibly from the Monster Manual. I haven't tracked it down, but it's nice that they all obviously have their picture. You want pictures if they're PCs. You can see here we're using the standard Roll20 D&D character sheet, and unfortunately I was disappointed that we didn't get a nice little background story here. That would be totally superfluous, but kind of nice to have. You do get the personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. I believe all of these are just taken from the player's handbook. But yeah, level 9, and everybody's either Githyanki or Githzerai. They're all set up, ready to go. You've got, let's see if I remember, there's a wizard, a super tanky fighter. I don't remember this one. Okay, cleric. I believe this one is a monk. There's a bard in here somewhere, and a rogue, I believe. So a pretty well-balanced party, but just level 9 is intimidating to jump into. I mean, if your D&D group is proficient at D&D and they've been playing it for a while and they've reached those levels before, then that could be a really fun thing to do, is to jump in with a one-shot, and you get to do these high-level PCs in a high-level dungeon situation. I could also see it being very difficult and overwhelming for newer players. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people play a lot of D&D and maybe even never reach these levels, even level 9, which is considered like technically halfway on the progression track. But a lot of campaigns, a lot of the published D&D campaigns don't go beyond like 12. Like that ends at that point. I have not made it past 11, and I've been playing D&D for 2-3 years now. It's it takes a while to get to that level if you're starting from scratch, and a lot of the material doesn't quite support higher level play, which is an advantage to Tome of Foes, is it very much does. But I could see that being difficult. Also, I thought the Adventurers League adventures were supposed to be one shot in nature, like they're supposed to be playable in a 4-hour chunk. That was the whole point of doing them, is that you get together for that session, you play through a beginning, middle, and end, you're done, you get your rewards, you move on. And that's a neat thing that they created. But this one, and it even mentions the fact that you're probably not going to be able to get through it in a single session. I don't know if it has notes on that here or where they are. And it's probably going to take 2 sessions. And, a standard session, according to D&D, is 4 hours. So they're saying, like, this is probably going to take over 4 hours. And the reason for that is because it's very combat heavy. Because, again, it's designed as a sample adventure to a bestiary. So, yeah, you're going to end up with combat. And that's the primary way in which we're interacting with this adventure. There's very little room for puzzles or role-playing or dialogue or anything of that manner. So if you like your Adventurers League to be more socially minded in terms of role-playing and dialogue, you're not really going to get that here. Obviously, a DM can do it however they want, and there are some opportunities, but you're basically looking at a straightforward dungeon crawl with a lot of combat. So let's jump into the Temple of Madness. Now, what I do like about this dungeon is that it's in Pandemonium, which is on the Plane of Madness, and it literally starts that classic, like, you're at the entrance of the dungeon, you all know each other, you're part of this hunting party, just go. We don't need to explain anything, we're just going. And it's a cool challenge because there's this howling wind that is just screeching through this cave the entire time, to where you cannot even speak beyond 10 feet from each other, and you have to like yell, which hopefully you wouldn't actually roleplay that, because that would get real old real fast. And you have to roll, I believe, a wisdom saving throw every hour, or suffer like indefinite madness, and I believe there were rules for suffering from exhaustion as well. Holy crap. That's awesome. Yeah, mad winds here. Described here. Finishing long rest doesn't reduce a creature's exhaustion level. On a failed save, the creature gains 1 level of exhaustion. Okay. If a creature reaches 6 levels of exhaustion, they don't die. Instead, they gain a form of indefinite madness. That's what it is. So that you gain exhaustion throughout. And exhaustion is bad. Like, it is a debilitating domino effect of just nasty features. You start losing hit points. You get disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks, and it's bad shit. But I like that they're specifically, and it knows like you're probably going to end up with a lot of these, so you don't die, you just get indefinite madness. But that's nice. There's also a ticking clock here. The plot is that the Mind Flayers are essentially just starting this doomsday device that's going to wipe out all of your psionic abilities of your people, so you have to go and stop them at the end of this dungeon. So you've got this magical item that one of your characters can attune to, and it literally tells you basically how much time you have. And it's basically broken down to where it limits the amount of rests you can have. You can either have 4 short rests or a long rest and a short rest. Anything beyond that, and the Doomsday device is activated, and you basically lose the adventure. So that limits that. Plus, as I said, you're making those saving throws every hour. So if you long rest, and it literally says if players long rest, they're making 8 saving throws. So most likely they're going to be exhausted after the long rest, because again, this is a horrible, horrible location to be in. And I think that's cool. I think that adds to the flavor the fact that you're not in Kansas anymore. You are on this plane of madness. Fucked up shit is happening. But you are a team of hardened badasses, so maybe you can make it happen. In terms of the physical map layouts, I am less than thrilled by this map. The first problem is that the very first encounter that you have is not on this map. There's an entrance, it's outside the dungeon, the gate to get in, and then when you get in, you basically drop into Area 1 here on the map. So you do not have that initial fight is between a Duergar, his stone guards, and then a hidden mind flayer who's controlling the Duergar. And the cool thing is, if you manage to suss out the mind flayer and destroy him, you can actually free the Duergar, who's not a fan of a mind. Nobody's a fan of fucking mind flayers. Fuck those guys. They take over your mind. And you could actually like not have to fight him if you manage to kill the mind flayer. But so that's an interesting little scenario. None of that's on this map. You'd have to use that included random battle map and actually place those tokens on here, which obviously those tokens are included here. You can see right here. Yeah, Duergar, Warlord, and the Stone Guard. So that's a bummer. It's not on here. The other problem is there's no detail whatsoever on this map. You've got, dynamic lighting is here. You can see. But there are supposed to be things in these rooms. And I get that, it's theater of the mind. And we're using, descriptive text to talk about what do I see in each room. But if you're using a virtual tabletop, I think there's still room for using objects and details on the map itself, particularly if it's a major focus of that room. For example, room number 1 is supposed to have like a dead mind flayer there, like a body that they can inspect. Room 2, there's a magical item like sitting in a corner that maybe you don't want to give that away. But room 4, there was like a bubbling pool of liquid. One of the rooms, it literally says, although not shown on the map, let's see if we can find that. I believe it's in area 7. Though it is not marked on the map, this room has a thick stone door, which is, I believe, locked, requires a dexterity check. Like, the whole point of this room is so that when you open the door, these star spawn mangler creatures attack you. And there's no door on this map. And yeah, it says, though it's not marked on that. Well, put that door on the map. Come on, Roll20. I need more things on this map. There's nothing. There's supposed to be a staircase down here at 6, where they can, like, climb up to this sort of hidey hole, and essentially it's a safe spot to rest. There's supposed to be things. There's a statue and other statues in room 8, and that's a cool combat encounter. There's this creature called an Eidolon that inhabits the statue, possesses it basically, and the statue is holding up the ceiling, and then it attacks you. The ceiling starts clicking downward. Now, the weird thing about that is the ceiling is 40 feet high, and it only clicks down at 20 feet high, so the ceiling is not even a concern. But that statue comes to life. Well, on here, they have the statue as a separate creature, which it is, on the GM's layer hidden. So when they walk into room 8, it's just an empty room. You have to describe to them that there's a statue here and all these statues. Put that statue in the room, and then I can put that on the GM layer, or just add this token on top. Work with me here with adding some kind of detail to the map. There's no detail on this map whatsoever. It's just a whole bunch of empty rooms that just doesn't look good at all, which is... That's a bummer. I was really disappointed with how it looks. How it plays, it seems pretty nice. Like it does do a good job of showing off a good variety of creatures, specifically from Mordenkainen's. As I said, there's that sacred statue, the Eidolon. It's whenever you destroy the statue part, it's like crystal eyes explode and these Alep creatures pop out. Look at how badass this thing looks. It's like the smoky ghost undead creature pops out of the eye sockets, and then you have to fight the little Eidolon creature itself, which all seems really cool. There's this Elder Oblex, which is a ooze that has been kind of shaped by, look at this thing, mind flayers, and is like a mind-draining ooze. That is such cool art. It's a mind-draining ooze that can actually create like a simulacrum of a person, and this is one of the few instances where you can actually sit there and have a dialogue and role-playing opportunity with this thing when it sits there and talks to you, which any player of D&D with their salt, if you're in a fucked up dungeon and there's just a normal person walking around being friendly, like 10 out of 10 times that is a fucked up evil creature that's just trying to like draw you in or something. Come on, who isn't immediately pulling out a weapon and being like, we gotta murder this thing, it's bad. The shock would be that if it was just a normal creature, but I mean normal people aren't just walking around the plane of madness. But this is a really, really nifty creature. That's actually the handout. Where's the... It's like a, what is it? A CR10 huge ooze. And it has the power to eat memories. And just keeps... It does a shit ton of psychic damage. Let's see. And it just keeps doing memory drain. The target must roll D4 and subtract the number rolled from any ability check. And each time its memory drain beyond the first, the die increases by 1. D4, D6, D8. and so on until they die becomes a D20, at which point the target becomes unconscious. So it just literally sucks the mind power out of you, which is an amazing scenario. And I like that you're essentially fighting a boss fight in like the second encounter of this dungeon. I believe there are 6 total encounters. The first one at the entrance, the Oblex, this one down here, which purely optional. It's one of those bullshit rooms where you just walk in, there's nothing in there but bad guys. And you're like, all right, well, that was bullshit. So that was 3. 4 is the sacred statue fight here. 5 is, there's these, again, this room here, and get rid of this. There's a giant portal here to the Far Realm, and it's not here at all. Like, it's just blank map. It looks so bad. With a pair of Mind Flayers. And then the final encounter, which also is not mapped. You step through the portal, and you enter into the alien Far Realm, which I picture as like the that scene from Hellboy, when those like tentacle creatures are all coming through, the first Hellboy. And it literally says, now the nice thing is the text says, the Far Realm looks like the cathedral in here. So I would literally just use the same map and maybe like paint the tiles some kind of like starry sky looking thing to make it look like you're somewhere else. But you know, the tokens for the last fight isn't on here, which is the Star Spawn, Seer, and a Hulk, and I believe this Ultra Illithid creature, which is just a boss Mind Flayer. And they're trying to start the Doomsday Device, and that's the final battle. But it's not mapped. So the first and final encounters of this dungeon aren't mapped, and the dungeon itself just doesn't have any detail on it. Now, I like the way, and that would be fine, again, from an Adventure League standpoint, if you're not actually using the map, you're just sitting around on a table using Theater of the Mind, that's fine. But on Roll20, if you're using an actual virtual tabletop, I'd want a little bit more detail. You know, give me those locked doors, give me the portal on there. Again, it does not have to be this beautifully made, everything is, you know, a professionally done map. That's not necessarily what I'm asking for, but I do need just at least the main part of each room. I'd like to see that added on there for sure. So I think, you know, it's disappointing, but it is it's sort of free. It's free if you're a subscriber, which is it's a nice perk. I do think it does do a fun job of giving you an example of those creatures from Mordenkainen's, both the player characters, which is really nice. Like, it gives you those Githzerai and Githyanki player characters at level 9, which I have mixed feelings about, but again, this is all high-level shit we're dealing with. It does feel very flavorful to be in the, this, what are they called, Temple of Madness, I think. You know, there's the Howling Winds and all that. It's a good tier. I call it high-level. To me, high-level is basically anything that's like high tier 2 and above, pretty much. I think it's pretty effective in that way, how it shows off those creatures as a sample adventure. I think it's a bummer that it's going to take you more than a session. The map itself is not nice just to look at. That part's a little disappointing. But Tome of Foes, so Rrakkma, mixed feelings. Tome of Foes, good, but only if you're really going to want to use those kind of exotic locations and creatures. Is that really going to do you any good? So let's go over my summarized pros and cons for really for both Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes and Rrakkma. Again, I mainly focused on Rrakkma because that, just for video purposes and for looking at stuff, that's the easier one to look at. But I did talk about Tome of Foes, and that is the actual purchasable, not module, but I guess call it supplement. So anyway, pros. Most of the new creatures and content are themed with higher-level extra-dimensional creatures and locations. Again, I like that. It's an easy either purchase or non-purchase, depending on if that's what you're looking for. If it is, thumbs up. If you're not going to be using that kind of stuff, then you can comfortably skip Tome of Foes. Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes is easily added into existing campaigns and modules through the Roll20 compendium. I really like how Roll20 has integrated all these supplements, which basically are just the bestiary stuff right now. But that's still that it's I went through and joined. I've got a lot of campaign games on here, and you can instantly use all that stuff, go right to the compendium, filter, and just drag those creatures over, and boom, you've got them all. So that part's really nice and really easy to use. Although again, it's not, if you're going to use like 2 or 3 creatures, you can make your own character sheet. It's not that hard. And Rrakkma Pro, I like that it provides the 6 pre-generated Gith characters, and that it features a interesting, challenging dungeon in the Plane of Madness. The well, we'll get to the con later, but the actual way with the howling winds and the ticking clock and the fact that you're playing a Gith hunting party, like all of that is really cool thematically, and I think it does do a good job showing off the new creatures. Cons. Again, if you're not interested in demons, cultists, and eldritch horrors, I think Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes has very little to offer you. Con, the Temple of Madness dungeon in Rrakkma is just disappointingly sparse, physically detailed on the actual map. Like, the content is good in the text, but as a DM running this adventure in Roll20, I would go in and have to add all of, I mean, at the very least, you add a fucking locked door to that one spot. It's not usable as is, frankly. I would have to add a lot of those little details. And then finally, the final con, the number of combat encounters makes Roc Ma take multiple sessions. Personally, we do, 2.5 hour sessions, I think, averaged. So it would take us quite a number. And even the standard 4-hour session, I think it would take you more than one, just because of the high number of combat encounters. And I think that jumping in with level 9 PCs could prove very overwhelming for a lot of players. Although it does work thematically in the context of using Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes as well. So, my final verdict, if you're looking for demon cults and cosmic horrors, Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes has just what you need, while Rrakkma serves as a decent, if sparse, sample adventure. So thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel. Thank you.